Welcome in the second lecture devoted to waves and optics. So in this lecture we are going to focus on traveling waves. So we are going to define waves first and see different types of waves. We will then focus on the wave on a string, and we will define parameters such as wavelengths, angular frequency, wave number. We will define the phase velocity, and then we will play with the mathematical expression of a traveling wave. We will also introduce the wave equation and also briefly present the superposition principle. So here are some references. So we use mainly this book, Fundamentals of Physics. I also recommend the books from Giancoli. So there are several books. One of them is named Physics. It's also the same level, quite good book. And I would like to draw your attention to openstacks.org. So this is they distribute free ebooks on for education, and this one, for example, here, the University Physics Volume 1. Actually, there are 3 of them, and they are similar, extremely similar to this book and to Giancoli also, and they are completely free, so free to download, to use, etc. So I use some illustration from this book actually in this presentation. So I encourage you to look at this website. And they also have so physics, of course, but mathematics, biology, etc. Here are some examples of waves. So first, mechanical waves. So we are going to deal mostly with mechanical waves in the first part of the course, and then we will move to electromagnetic waves in the second part of the course. So these mechanical waves are governed by Newton's laws. They need a medium to travel in, so like water, air, or some solid. So common examples include water waves, sound waves, or seismic waves, or wave on a string, as we will see soon. Electromagnetic waves, so they are quite special. They do not require a medium in the sense that they can travel through a vacuum. So vacuum, okay, is in classical mechanics is nothing, let's say. Okay, so but still it can be considered a kind of medium. Okay, so you will see that in quantum mechanics or quantum field physics, etc. So in vacuum, these electromagnetic waves travel at the fixed exact speed, c, the speed of light. So, okay, common examples include visible light, ultraviolet, infrared, radio, television waves, microwaves, X-rays, radar waves. Alright, so, and then there are matter waves. We are not going to talk at all about these. These are so these waves are associated with electrons, protons, and other fundamental particles. So you've probably heard of the particle wave duality. So this is this domain belongs to quantum mechanics and other things like particle physics. So even atoms and molecules can behave like waves. Okay, so in general they are called matter waves. Okay, but we are going to focus first part mechanical waves, second part electromagnetic waves. Alright, so let's define a wave, and we will start with an easy example that you can understand easily because it's a wave of people in a stadium. Alright, so let's launch that video. I took it from YouTube.
You are looking at
Alright, so let's see.
Attempt, can they do it? 168,000. They are here from the Guinness Book of World Records to certify the record if they can make it all the way around. Yes, folks, just another sellout crowd here at the world's fastest half mile in Bristol, Tennessee.
Looks like it's getting off turn 2 pretty good. Build a little momentum down the backstretch here.
Got to get it to turn 3. We're going to have a record if they can make it all the way around. They would break the record by some 50,000 fans. And they have done it, folks. Here they come. A new world record for the weight. 168,000 fans have jammed their way in to watch what has historically been a stock car slugfest at Bristol Motor Speedway. Drivers are cinched up, fans are on their feet as we go trackside to get the command to fire them up.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the words we've all been waiting.
A function of x of the position and time. So, and in this particular case, it looks like a pulse, moving pulse. So it has a velocity because it's moving. So for example, we can look at the pulse peak and look how fast it is moving across the stadium. So this is in fact the pulse peak, for example, is a mathematical point. Okay, because you see that people are not moving with the waves. They are not moving across the stadium. They are just standing up and sitting down. So they do not move with that pulse. So no matter is actually transported by the wave. Okay, the people are just moving perpendicularly to the wave direction. Okay, so in fact, in this case, this is what is called a transverse wave, because what is actually moving is moving perpendicularly to the wave direction. So we will see soon that there are also longitudinal waves where the things are moving in the same direction as the wave propagation. Another thing, we need a medium for this wave, because if there are no people, there is no wave. Okay, so the people in the stadium are constitute the medium that you need for this particular wave, and you need some kind of interaction between the people, between neighbors. Alright, so you need this interaction will be a kind of property of that medium. So in this case, you may think about it as a kind of elastic property. Imagine that two neighbors are connected, they hold hands, and when one is getting up, he is pulling the neighbor also up, but with a delay. Okay, so if they if they are not connected, if they do not hold hands, for example, they may just look at the neighbor. So when they see the neighbor starting to get up, they say, okay, it's my time also to get up. But you see that if that person is very sharp, reactive, fast, he will get up very fast, and if all people are like that, the wave is going to propagate very fast. But if, on the contrary, people are very lazy, not so moving that fast, he sees the neighbor getting up and then think 1 second, okay, I have to get up. So you see that in this case the wave will be slower. So the velocity, so the speed at which that bump will move across the stadium will depend on the property of that medium. Alright, so what is actually transported by the wave? because we've seen that people are not transported. There is a signal going across the stadium, but people are just moving very limited motion perpendicularly to that wave direction. So what it is transported? So if you look at what is going on in the bump, you see that people are standing up and sitting down, so they are moving. So their energy changes. So they may have some kinetic energy, potential energy slightly changes too. So within the bump, there is kinetic energy and potential energy change. Okay, so in fact, and when they are sitting down, their energy doesn't change. It's fixed. No kinetic energy, potential energy is fixed. So what we see is that there is energy in that bump, and therefore energy is transported by the wave. So this is an important point. All right, so so that's all for this slide. So all what I said before is summarized in this slide. So we have a signal traveling, so we have a traveling wave. That signal can be put into the form of a mathematical waveform, so function of position and time, and it has a velocity. For example, that of the peak of a pulse, but it doesn't have to be a pulse, it can be anything. So it's a mathematical point, so nothing is physically moving with that waveform, no matter transported, limited motion of people perpendicularly to the wave direction, so this is a transverse wave. A medium is necessary with some interaction between neighbors, and this will define this is a property of the medium which will define the velocity of the wave. And energy is transported by a wave. Alright, so let's look at this wave. So this defines a longitudinal wave.
In a longitudinal wave, the disturbance that makes up the wave is along the direction in which the wave travels.
That piece of
longitudinal waves are also referred to as compression waves.
Spring is propagating.
In a transverse wave, the disturbance that makes up the wave is perpendicular to the direction in which the wave travels.
Okay. The disturbance is, in fact, this time is perpendicular to the propagation direction. Okay. So this is illustrated here. This is a transverse wave. So the motion of the medium is transverse, is perpendicular to the direction of the wave. And for a longitudinal wave, the vibrations are in fact in the same direction as the wave's motion. So you could imagine that some point here is just oscillating like that. In this case, they are oscillating in this way, and here they are oscillating longitudinally compared to the wave's direction. Let's now look at water waves. Okay, let's play this video. So you see now it is a little bit complicated. So it's a surface wave in the sense that we are looking at a point at the interface between water and the air. But you see that this actually in the vertical direction, this, and even in the horizontal direction, that point is moving. Okay, both in the horizontal direction and also in the vertical direction. So this is an object that is floating, for example. So you see that. So it's experienced, in fact, a kind of circle here. Okay. And this would represent, the blue dot represents some particle of water, let's say. It's a mapping of the water, and you can see the motion of the water. So alright, so this shows this this kind of circular motion that one piece of water is experiencing. So in fact, this is a combination of a longitudinal wave with a transverse wave. And as you know, on the beach, close to the land, the wave usually breaks like this. So this is due to the fact that the speed of the water will not be the same on the top and at the bottom of this trajectory. So especially when you reach the land, so there is some drag, water drags at the bottom and is slowed down. So this means that the molecules at the top of the wave will move faster than these ones, and this will deform the waveform and eventually break the wave. This is also why tsunami becomes higher when they're in shallow waters. So if they may have the wave may have a given height far away from the shore, and when it gets close to the shore, because of this of the shallow waters, the height also increases. This is an example of a sound wave. So sound can be produced by loudspeakers like this, so they move actually. The membrane here is moving, oscillating. So when it moves, it pushes on the air and it creates some zones of compression, of high pressure, and some zone of low pressure. Okay, so these dots are supposed to represent the air molecules. So these zones are high pressure, so high pressure zones where there is compression, and low pressure zones where you have expansion. Therefore, you can model these sound waves using the pressure. You can also use a molecule displacement. So the blue curve here, in fact, represents molecule displacement. So of course the middle is 0. So the 0 displacements happen at the top of the high pressure and the bottom of the low pressure, because these are equilibrium positions. Okay. For example, looking at this, molecules from this side and from this side are going towards this position, and at this position they don't move. The molecules don't move. And on the contrary, in a low pressure region here, the molecules are getting away from that position, so to the right here and to the left there. So here is and this exactly at this point would not move. Okay, so it's a low pressure. So the zeros of the displacements are located at the lowest pressure and highest pressure in this case. Alright, so we have also two-dimensional waves. So for example here, typically when a drop of water drops into some lake or pond or whatever, some water, you see these kind of waves at the surface. This is an example of a three-dimensional wave. So this is a wave generated by a point source. So imagine you have a point here and you have a generation of wave there, and we will see later how we can generate waves. And you have okay, this kind of oscillating things in all directions. If the medium is isotropic, if all directions are equivalent, then you will have this kind of isotropic propagation. So now let's do some simulation with a string using an animation that you can find at the link shown at the bottom of this slide. This is an animation of a string. This string has some property shown here. So there is a tension. We can choose between low, medium, high. It has some damping properties. We can choose no damping or a lot of damping. So let's see what is happening without damping. So here I can move this and see what happens. Okay, this is okay. Yeah. Okay, so you see we have propagation of a waveform. Whatever waveform I produce, it is transmitted. So we need a connection between the dots here, like the wave, the human wave in the stadium. So we had several people next to each other. So here we can decompose that string into small elements that are connected with each other. So okay, we will not talk a lot about damping in this course. Damping is when you have some loss of energy, because a normal string would lose some energy when it deforms. So it will the energy of the wave would be transferred to heat. Some of it will be transferred to heat, and therefore the energy of the wave will go down, okay, as a function of time, and therefore as a function of position. So what we expect is that the amplitude is going to go down because the energy is going out as a function of time. So let's try this. So indeed you have it's going down very quickly. So we take less damping. It will take a longer time to decrease. Okay, so let's go back to no damping. We can do whatever we want here. We can try a pulse, actually, like a triangular pulse, like this. Alright, we can try an oscillator. So here you have an oscillator. That green dot is just oscillating up and down, and the wave is moving from left to right, even though each point on that string is just going up and down. So if you just focus on that green dot here, it is going up and down, but not moving with the wave. And here you see that this is a circular, uniform circular motion, which produces an oscillating pattern here. Alright, so let's now focus on the speed of that wave. Let's go to normal speed. It's a bit fast. Let's see the effect of the tension. So okay, it's quite fast now. Now the tension is low, so a lot of things have changed. So let's go back to the pulse. It will be easier probably. Okay, high. Let's go to medium. So obviously the pulse is going at a lower speed, it seems. Yeah, now it's very clear. So tension will have an effect on the speed. So tension is a property of that system, of the string. So the tension will influence the speed of the medium. So this is like the speech I had with the humans in the stadium. If they are very reactive, the speed should be very fast. If they are slow to respond to what the neighbor is doing, then the speed will be low. So same story here. High tension, you have a high response. Low tension, a slow response. What about the frequency? Low low frequency. Let's calculate, let's not calculate, but let's see how fast is this wave. So we can look at that by focusing on the maximum. So if we focus just on the maximum of that one, for example, it's moving to the right. So let's measure, so we will start the timer when one maximum crosses the window, and we put it on and we wait for the next. This will give us the time it takes for one period to cross the window. So it will be inversely proportional to the speed. Okay, normal. Okay, so that was 1 second 48. Now let's try a higher speed. 148. Okay, only 56, so it's not very accurate, but it's enough for us. We can see that the frequency has an effect on the speed. The higher the frequency, the higher the speed, it seems. Alright, so that's all for now for this animation. Alright, so now we just summarize what we have seen in the demonstration, in the animation. So we have a rope, which is an elastic medium. So when you just move it up with your hand, you create an excitation. So imagine the page is horizontal, so it would be a leftward excitation here. And it propagates due to the string elasticity, like that. So when your hand is going to the right, it produces motion to the right, and then you have formed your pulse, and this is a waveform that is propagating. So this wave can propagate over large distances as long as there is not too much damping. And each part of the rope is just oscillating up and down. So about waves are transporting energy. So in this case, you have transferred. You did some work with your hand. You transferred some energy to the rope that is moving. So there is kinetic energy in there, and that kinetic energy is propagating with the wave. Let's now focus on a traveling pulse. So as seen in this drawing, a traveling pulse. So let's model this mathematically. And let's focus on that speed, the speed of that pulse. So in fact, we can say that we can follow the top, the maximum, and decide that this point is defined by x equal vt, and v is the speed of the pulse. Alright, so we can model such a pulse with a Gaussian function. For example, here this red curve is given by this equation, and it is centered at x equals 0. Alright, so after a given time t0, that pulse have moved, and now it is at this position. So it is at position x0 equal 100 in this case. So what is the equation actually of this blue curve? So it can be obtained from this curve by changing, doing a variable change, changing x by x0. Because the center here is 0, now it is x0. So in fact, this function g of x is just f of x minus x0. Okay, and the x0 itself is vt0. Okay, because that poles have moved x0 in t0 time, so the velocity is just x0 divided by t0. Alright, so we can write that g of x is f of x minus vt0. And this works for any function. We have just taken a Gaussian function, a nice one, for this example, but it can be any wave form. So in fact, the general expression of a traveling wave is a function of x minus vt. Okay, this is a very general finding. Let's now focus on sinusoidal waves. So as we have seen with the animation, we can generate such a wave using a string vibrator like that. So this signal is going to move to the right, and each part, so here for example this piece of the rope which has mass delta m, is just oscillating up and down. So this is a transverse wave, and each point experiences a simple harmonic motion. This would be for a sound wave. So again, we can create a sinusoidal wave, sound wave. This would represent the density of the air, so high concentration of molecules here, low concentration here. So obviously the perturbation here is a function of both time and space. So we are going to describe mathematically these. Alright, so let's look at this. This is a wave propagating, and this is graph shows the motion of that red dot. So it's a function of it is the amplitude as a function of time for this red dot. And this is just a snapshot taken at a given time. So this is an amplitude as a function of position. Okay, so we have here amplitude as a function of time, and here as a function of position at a given time. So this one is in fact with time, but at a given position. So we fix the position, we look what is happening as a function of time. Here we fix the time and we look what is happening as a function of position. So here is in fact what we have seen in the previous lecture. It is just a simple harmonic motion. So it is a sine wave. It is a sine function, sorry. And it can be written just as an amplitude and sine omega t plus a phase shift. So the phase shift will depend on the position that you choose. Okay. Okay, so we have chosen a sine. It could be a cosine. It doesn't matter. Again, it is your phi will change if you decide to take a cosine instead of a sine. And here you have also, so now you fix the time and you look at the position, so you can write the same because it is also a sine function. So in that case, you define actually the equivalent of omega, which is k, but for the position x. So you can write it as ym sine kx plus a phase shift that will depend on time. Okay, so the phase shift just represents the value at that you have at x equals 0 here, for example. Okay, so let's summarize these results. And so this is a graph. So it shows the wave in the time domain, okay, for a given position. You have that. So this is similar to it's just a simple harmonic motion. So you know already there is a period t, there is an angular frequency omega, and you can write y in this way. Again, a cosine or a sine, it doesn't matter. And this is a snapshot, so taken at a given time, and you look at your wave in space domain. So we can also define a period, because that function is periodic in space, and we call that lambda. So remember, here's the period in time, we call it t, the period in space, we call it lambda. And we can define the equivalent of the angular frequency. So we call it the angular wave number, which is k equal to pi over lambda. So in fact, wave number, because it's how many wavelengths you have. This is 2 pi, this is a complete. So this is in fact the angular speed in some sense, because this is one full cycle in phase space divided by how long it takes to go from 0 to 2 pi in the phase of space. So it's one cycle in time. So here the same, you have one cycle in phase and one full cycle in space. Okay. It also shows how many wavelengths you have in 2 pi. So, hence the name of wave number, angular wave number. It is how many wavelengths you have in one cycle of phase. And we can write it in this way, so in a similar way. Just now, instead of omega you have k, and instead of t you have x. And this phase shift depends on time. So this summarizes all of these parameters. We have here the phase domain, the time domain, and space domain. So before in the last lecture, when we studied oscillations, we only had the phase domain and the time domain. So now for waves, we need to add the space domain. So one oscillation is 2 pi radian in the phase, it's t seconds and lambda meters. The phase rate of change in each domain, so it's omega for time and k in space. And the equation is this. So the global equation, looking at this, you have an omega t, you have a kx and a phase shift. So basically, what could the equation of the wave be? Okay, we can write it this way. So we have the kx, we have the omega t, and we can have some phase shift. Alright, so we are going to see why we can't have a plus or minus here. It will. So if you remember what we did with the pulse, when your pulse is moving to the right, you have to put a minus, a vt. Okay, so you would have a minus for a wave traveling to the right, traveling towards a positive x. But if your wave is traveling towards negative x, you have to put a plus here. Let's now focus on the wave velocity. So again, you have your string here. So the wave velocity is in fact also called the phase velocity. So again, it does not represent a physical quantity because it is the speed, let's say, of this maximum moving to the right. It's not a physical point moving, it is a mathematically defined point. it's not matter is not moving at that speed. Matter is actually in this case moving, just oscillating in a direction perpendicular to the wave direction. So in fact, that phase velocity can be greater than c. It doesn't matter because it's not a real physical entity. All right, so it just represents the speed of the excitation propagation. So physically, what is moving is the energy. Okay, so we can define the speed of the energy of a wave, and this is called the group velocity. So it's not in our syllabus, so we will not talk more about it. So I will, okay, just a little later on, but we don't speak more, we don't describe more about this. But don't worry, it will come very soon, next year and next year. Alright, so how to calculate our phase velocity? So if you take this example, so the solid curve is at t equals 0, and the dashed curve is at time t, and we see that this maximum has moved by vt. So we have to calculate, in fact, delta L, so this distance divided by delta t. Okay, so one easy way to do that is look at how far our wave has moved in a time of one period t. Okay. So this is shown here. We start in this state after a time t already. So we have here one wavelength. So this is the position of x, okay, at different times. So we start from t and we go until 2t. Okay, so we have a delta t of one period. So we see, so this red dot, how far it has moved. So, okay. So this is the 0 point. Huh? Okay, so now it is here, here, there, etc. Now here. Right, so, okay, so that the wave has moved from 0 to, in fact, a distance lambda. Okay, so our speed is just the distance traveled divided by time, so it's lambda over t, and because of the relationship between omega and t and lambda and k, you can write it as omega divided by k. So this is your phase velocity. Okay, so the group velocity would be in fact similar but different. It is d omega divided by dk, so the derivative of omega with respect to k. And of course this is in meters per second. We can calculate the phase velocity using another way. So our wave is shown here and is given by this equation. So if we focus on the maximum here and see how it moves, the maximum, so we are looking at a point that has always the same value of y, okay, which means that this is constant, this is always the same. And in order for y to remain the same, we need that the phase be always the same also. So in fact, we are looking at the velocity of points of constant phase. Okay, so these points have always constant kx minus omega t. So they are defined actually. The x is defined by this value of the phase. So we can take the derivative of this function, so the constant will disappear. We have k dx dt, so the variables are x and t, and okay, we take the derivative with respect to t, so we get k dx dt minus omega equals 0. And this is what we are looking for, dx dt. Therefore, we find v equal omega divided by k. So let's look at the velocity of a wave on a string. So again, the velocity of the wave is a property of the medium. And in the case of a string, it will depend on the tension in the cord, Ft, and the mass density, mu. So mu is the total mass divided by the total length for a uniform piece of material, piece of string in this case. So we are going to derive it actually later on in this lecture. So for waves of small amplitude, the relationship is this. So the velocity will be square root of the tension divided by the density. So in fact, so the density, it is a mass density, so this is an inertia factor, and the tension is related to the elasticity of your string. So it is an elastic force factor. So in fact, it is quite similar to what we have seen for oscillations. Remember, omega is equal to the square root of springiness divided by inertia. So you have exactly the same relationship. And if you remember the animation, we saw that the greater the tension in the rope, the faster was the wave. And okay, we see it now. The greater the tension, the faster the wave. And on the contrary, the heavier, so the higher the density, the slower is your wave. And this is expected because you increase inertia, so you will decrease the speed of the motion. Actually, so there are the examples of strings actually oscillating in real life. You have the guitar, of course, piano, etc. But you also have, for example, catenary for trains, for example. So you know that trains take electricity from cables that are hung like this in the air, and they have this kind of so this is called the catenary, this thing that is pushing on the cable to take the electricity, to make contact between this piece and the cable. So for this is a French bullet train, so called TGV, so train à grande vitesse, so basically train with high speed. So the copper section is this 150 square millimeter, so it's a large cable. The density is 1.4 kilo per meter, and the tension used in commercial operation is 26,000 Newton. So from this we can get the speed of the wave that you can generate in these cables, and it's 474 km per hour. So in fact, if you want to avoid the troubles, your train must travel at a speed lower than that. So the commercial speed is typically 350 km per hour. So what is happening is that this piece is pushing on that cable. So if you push on it, like in the simulation we did, you can generate a wave. Okay. So if that wave is going faster than the train, it doesn't matter. It will just go faster, go away. But if your train is going at the same speed, that's a problem because you push on it, so the cable is going up, and that is transferred to the next part, and both are moving at the same speed, let's say, at this speed. So the contact will be lost, or both will, if the catenary keeps on pushing on that cable, the cable will continue to go up, and at some point you will have some problems. Okay. All right. So this is limiting the speed at which you can travel with the train. Just mention the 2007 world record of speed on rails. So a conventional train on conventional rails was established at this speed, and they needed special equipment because this is higher than the wave on the string using these commercial operation parameters. So in particular they used a tension of 40,000 Newton. So to my knowledge, this is still the record for a conventional train on conventional rails. Of course, now the magnetic trains are going faster than that. In particular, the Japanese maglev that will actually soon enter into service between Tokyo and Nagoya, going through Kofu in Yamanashi Prefecture. So it will connect Tokyo and Nagoya in I don't know, maybe 1.5 hour, something like that. Very maybe 2 times faster than using the Shinkansen train. This is the speed that you get for sound waves. So again, square root, and you have the elasticity of air in some sense, which is a bulk modulus. Actually, this would work for a solid as well. You can find the bulk modulus of any solid, and divided by the density also. So it's quite similar. Alright, so B bulk modulus in okay, these units. You can view. So what is the bulk modulus? In fact, you can write. So you have this equation that you can rewrite like this. So in fact, the bulk modulus is just a constant that you put in between d rho and dp. So in fact, it measures how much the density changes compared to original value when you change your pressure by dp. Okay, so this is a linear response. Let's say you change your pressure by dp, your change of rho of density, d rho, would be just a constant, which is 1 divided by b multiplied by this excitation. So this is a typical example of a linear response when you excite your material using a small excitation. Okay, so sound wave, of course that speed for the air at roughly room temperature is, this is something that you probably know very well, the speed of sound, 343 meters per second. And you can describe sound waves again using the displacement of molecules like this, or the pressure variation. And both of them are actually out of phase. So if you have a cosine for one, the other one is a sine. Let's come back to the general expression of a traveling wave. So we have seen this slide already. We have seen that the general expression of a traveling wave is a function of x minus vt. So let's see how this works with a sinusoidal wave. We have this. So it's the same story. Your first function is just a sine wave. When it is shifted by vt, you have to change the argument of your function from x to x minus vt. So we need to translate our curve by an amount minus vt. Right, so this works also for any function, including for a sine wave. So when your wave is traveling towards positive x with velocity v, we have to write minus x minus vt. So we'll see soon that this is equivalent to kx minus omega t. And if it's traveling towards negative x, we have to write the function x plus vt or kx plus omega t. So let's see an example. Let's actually derive the expression of the sine wave. Okay, so we start at t equals 0, we have this wave. So it is given by this expression. Okay, at x equals 0, y equals 0, you have that. And we want to derive the function at the time t. And we know that at time t, we just need to replace x by x minus vt. So we just write this. So now we can go further. We can write it in this way. So v is lambda over t. We can get rid of the lambda. I mean in this one. Like this. So we distribute the lambda. So we get an x divided by lambda and a t over t. So this is very beautiful. It's mathematically beautiful. Why? Because you see that these are dimensionless. Okay. So in fact this equation shows very clearly the double periodicity in time and space. Because this is t is a full cycle in time, lambda a full cycle in space. So if your time changes here by one period, your sign, so the phase here will change just by an integer 2 pi. So it will not change, it is the same, because this sign is of course periodic with period 2 pi. And same story for the x, for the position. Alright, so, but this is a little bit heavy to work with. You have to write this ratio, you have to write the 2 pi, the ratio by lambda, the ratio by t. So usually we prefer using this equation, which is easier, faster to write. We replace, so 2 pi over lambda is k and 2 pi over t is omega. So this is the expression, the typical expression used for a sinusoidal wave. Now let's see how we can easily relate a phase shift to a shift in time and a shift in space. So you have this relationship, delta x equal v delta t, and the result is this. So from our last lecture, you remember we have already established that phi over 2 pi equal delta t divided by the period. So now we just add another. This is also equal, this ratio also equal to delta x divided by lambda. So it is shown here. So this one shows the relationship between phase and time domain. and this one, the relationship between phase domain and position. So these again they make total sense because this is a portion of oscillation phi divided by a full cycle in phase domain, and this is just a portion of displacement in space divided the corresponding, of course, corresponding to phi, divided by a full cycle in space, and equal also to the corresponding shift in time divided by a full period in time. So this is this equation is very helpful to solve problems when they give you phi and they ask you to determine delta t or delta x. Okay, they give you one of the parameters and they ask you to find another. Let's look at an example actually using this equation. Let's derive the mathematical expression of a traveling wave using that equation that we have seen in the previous slide. So let's start at t equals 0. We have this function. Okay. So of course there is a. Okay, we don't look at the. We assume a equal 1. So we have this sine function at x equals 0, and the dashed curve here is at a later time t, and we know that. And so looking at this, there is a phase shift. Okay, so we can write it in this way. So it's the same function, but we have a phase shift, and that phase shift depends on time. Okay, so let's find out this phi of t. So this phase shift is a phase shift of the wave at time t with respect to the wave at t equals 0. Okay, and we notice that the curve at time t lags compared to the curve at t equals 0. So the maximum is reached later than this one. So phi is negative in this case. So this is something we have seen already before with the oscillations. When your function is shifted to the right, positive x in this case, you have to add a negative value of the phase shift. Okay. So in other words, if you start from the dashed curve and you want to get back to the solid curve, you have to shift by minus vt, by a delta x equal minus vt. So we can use that equation that we have seen before. That phase shift corresponds to that delta x, because we are looking at the curve at time t with respect to the curve at t equals 0. So we have to go, your delta x must be minus vt if you look from the time t to t equals 0. And using that equation and replacing delta x by minus vt, we get that, which indeed corresponds to a negative phase shift. So now we can replace this in this equation. Before that, indeed, the speed, yeah, we can simplify this. Speed is lambda divided by t, so lambda disappears, we just have t. Okay. Actually, this is also a beautiful equation because t divided by the period is dimensionless, and you just have a radian here clearly seen. So it's just a phase. Okay, so we replace in our equation phi by this expression, and we get back to the expressions that we have already seen before. Okay. Alright, so this is a summary for traveling waves. for the mathematics of traveling waves. This is your general equation. Don't worry, it can be a cosine depending on the situation. You have the space domain, the time domain, with the period, the angular speed, the cycle, and both period and angular speed are related by this, and space and time are related by the velocity in this way. So now let's move to let's introduce the wave equation. So this is for in one dimension. So this is a general differential equation that governs the travel of waves of all types. So any wave, traveling wave, will obey this equation, and this is the speed v. So how do you find this? You just apply the relevant fundamental physics law. So for a wave on a string, this is mechanics, so you apply Newton's law for small displacements, and for a sound wave you apply gas theory. So this works for small changes. Okay. And of course, this you can check that this equation is a solution of this equation. And you will find that the speed is omega divided by k. Okay. So again, when you put a minus here, you have a wave traveling to positive x with velocity v. With a plus, you have a traveling wave towards negative x. Okay, so now let's find out the equation of a wave on a string. So we start with a rope like this. So we take a small element of that string. It has mass delta m equal mu delta x, mu being the density. So here, after we produce a pulse on that string, we have a pulse shape here, and we are looking at that piece of delta x, of length delta x on that string. So remember, the piece of mass here, delta m, will only oscillate up and down. It will not move in the x direction, but only in the y direction. So, of course, we have the tension on this side of delta m and on this side, and because that piece of mass doesn't move in the x direction, we have this component of the tension, the horizontal component of the tension should be the same on both sides. So this is of course a small approximation. So we can say that Ft at x2 is equal to Ft at x1. The magnitude is the same. So we call the magnitude Ft. Right. So Ft is our magnitude. So this one and this one are equal. So our point here will move only up and down. So we need to apply Newton's law vertically, in the vertical direction. So we need to express F2 and F1. Okay, so here we notice that so the force, the total force is in fact along the total tension is tangential to the string. Okay. So we can write that the tangent theta 2, let's say, is equal to F2 positive number divided by Ft positive number, and tangent theta 1 is also equal to this time to F1 divided by Ft. So we take, so here that tangent is a positive number because it's supposed to represent the slope here. So we take it as a, we put a minus because f1 is negative. It's negative because it's pointing down. Okay, so f1 here is algebraic. So f2 is positive, f1 is negative. So we put a minus. And that tangent at any point is equal to dy dx by definition, because yes, it's a derivative. All right, so combining all these three equations, we can find that f1 equal to minus ft derivative at point 1, and f2 is ft multiplied by the derivative at point 2. So the net force in the vertical direction, which is f1 plus f2, so f1, remember, is negative, is ft multiplied by these two terms. So we can apply Newton's law in the vertical direction. So the force, net force, is this, equal ma. So we are looking at a very small element of mass delta m. So it's delta m a. Delta m is mu delta x, and a is the second derivative of y with respect to time. So now what we do is we divide this equation by ft delta x, so this one disappears and we have a delta x coming. Here the delta x disappears and we have ft coming. And we take the limit delta x approaches 0, which makes sense because we want our piece of mass to be infinitely small. Okay, so when we do that, notice that this in fact is similar to this. So we have a function of in fact at x2 this is a function of x plus delta x, and this one at x1 is just the derivative, the function at x. So x2 equal x1 plus delta x in this case. So it's exactly the same as this. So by definition, this is therefore the derivative of f, and f is already the first derivative of y with respect to x. So this will be, that limit will be the second derivative of x, of y with respect to x. Okay, so this will become this equation, which is what we have seen before, the wave equation. And this piece is supposed to be 1 over v squared. Therefore, we get that indeed the speed is the square root of the tension divided by the density. Okay, so now some comments about the linearity of that equation. The wave equation is a linear equation. So there is no terms like y squared or y multiplied by dy dx, etc. So this is called the linear equation, and they have very interesting properties, and actually that's why you study linear algebra in mathematics, because it's very useful in physics. So for example, if y1 and y2 are two different solutions of the wave equation, then the linear combination is also, any linear combination is also a solution. Also, this means also if you have two waves passing through the same region of space at the same time, the actual displacement is the sum of the separate displacements, and they will not interact in most cases. So this is the principle of superposition, and this is very this is shown also in the Fourier theorem. So I have already spoken about that, I think, in the last lecture. Basically, a complex like this one, a very complicated periodic wave of period t can be represented as a sum of pure sinusoidal terms whose frequencies are integral multiples of 1/t. So if the wave is not periodic, in fact, we can still use the Fourier theorem. The sum becomes an integral called the Fourier integral or Fourier transform. Okay, so this is extremely useful. In fact, what this means, so your D will be a sum of nice sine waves. So the equivalent, an analogy of this would be when you have a vector in 3D, for example, in 2D, let's say, to make it simple. I can make a small drawing, maybe. Yes, okay. Yes, so in I will draw it here. So when you have an x-axis and a y-axis like this, any vector, for example this one, can be the sum of two vectors. So this one along x plus okay, let's say this one along y. So this vector in blue equals that vector in green plus that vector in orange. So you can write that that the blue equal alpha some unit vector in the x direction plus another number in the y direction. So this is exactly the same. In fact, you can say this is your vector, that one, and it is a linear combination of unit vectors. Okay, but except that it is in a function space. So actually this is called a space. You will see that in mathematics, if not already done. And they could be called, in fact, also vectors. So you will see anyway Fourier theorem very soon. Alright, so this is the end of this lecture, and this is the summary of all you need to know and understand. So the equation of the traveling wave, all the parameters in space and time domains, and the velocity, the wave equation, the typical solution, the principle of superposition, the phase velocity, general form, that of a string, and that for sound.